So what's the date? 21st of March,
Yes,
2016.
A good day for justice in Nottingham.
Why? What's happened in the courts today?
Andreas Loggins, the first Beechwood case to go to trial, has been found guilty on all 17 charges. This is going to set a proper precedent now, because no longer can either council, the city or the county, say if allegations are proved. Allegations have been proved, and from his own evidence, he actually admitted it in court that he was aware of it. So if he was aware of it, my question is, who else was aware of it? This validates the stuff that's been put across by Joni Cameron Blair. Allegations that we have made, we being the Nottingham CSA Inquiry Action Group, that have fought long and hard to expose the truth. As you know, Mark, we occupied the council house, right, and cleared them on September the 8th, 2014. And I told the CEO of Nottingham City Council, I've come from New York to challenge you. Well, today that challenge was met by a jury, and a jury of men and women, right, from the city of Nottingham said that abuse did happen in Nottingham, and the man is guilty as charged. Sentencing will be on on Wednesday, and as far as I'm concerned, I hope and pray that the judge uses the maximum sentence for rape. The maximum sentence is life.
This would seem to suggest that Nottingham City Council, or Nottingham Criminal Cartel as they should be known, have been complicit in covering up this child rape.
Well, the thing is that they handed over the running of social services in 1974 until 1998 to the county council. This perpetrator, the one that's been found guilty, his time frame is from Beechwood during that time. So it sets a precedent all round, because, like, from my perspective, where everything of mine has gone missing, like all my records, statements from a previous investigation, now the notebook, everything goes missing. We know that they're all in together, the county council, the city council, and the corrupt Nottingham police, who, as far as I'm concerned, I hold the same opinion as you. They are a criminal cartel together.
Well, I think the evidence backs that up 100%.
But from my perspective, at the end of the day, I have one thing to say. We started the Nottingham CSA Inquiry Action Group, myself and Mandy Copeland, and with the backing of yourself. And from that end, we've campaigned long and hard, and justice is finally coming. We've got to wait till Wednesday. But as far as I'm concerned, Mr. Selected Leader, Mr. CEO of the City Council, the head of the Social Services of the City Council, Mr. Leader of the County Council, yeah, you know who you are, the CEO, and their head of Social Services, like, you're all now in the frame. And as far as I'm concerned, I cannot wait for Judge Lowell Goddard to appear in Nottingham with the Goddard inquiry. I've got faith and belief in it, because this is going to be a first for this country, and it may be the only ever opportunity that we ever get. And, well, been back here 2 years. 2 years has took its toll, but you know what, today, get in there.
Welcome to ITV News Central for these moments. On the programme tonight, a former social worker is found guilty of historic sexual offences, including 4 counts of rape.
He just basically said that, you know, we would keep this to ourselves and nobody needs to know about it.
Good evening. A former social worker has been found guilty of carrying out a string of sex attacks at a children's home in Nottingham. The jury at Nottingham Crown Court unanimously found Andreas Loggins guilty of 13 charges of indecent assault and 4 charges of rape at the former Beechwood Children's Home.
Well, today the judge told him he's facing a lengthy jail sentence. Correspondent Phil Brewster reports.
This was the former Beechwood Children's Home last year as the demolition crews moved in. For the youngsters who passed through its doors, this building should have been a safe haven. But thanks to one man, it's now synonymous with pain and misery. In the early 1980s, Andries Logins was employed here as a resident social worker, tasked with looking after vulnerable children. Instead, he used his position to carry out a string of sex attacks on 4 young girls and boys. During his trial, the jury were told Logins would develop a rapport with his victims to gain their trust before indecently assaulting them in bedrooms, a shower room, even once on a day trip to the country.
As children, they'd previously been either physically, sexually or neglected, and it was as a result of that they were actually placed in local authority care. And what should have been a safe place, Beechwood, unfortunately was quite the opposite, and they were then laid at the hands of Andy Logins, who abused them.
But during police interviews, the 57-year-old denied any wrongdoing and suggested 2 of his accusers were lying.
They must have conspired in some way to do that, because their accounts by your description are very similar, aren't they? So,
They are. Which suggests to me that you're the person who's done this, Andy.
Which suggests to me that the 2 girls are lying and they're colluding together.
But in court, 3 of his victims testified Logins was their abuser, including 2 women who claimed he'd raped them. The jury also saw video footage of 3 of Logins' victims picking him out of a police identity parade. The officers conducting the investigation say that for all of them, reliving their ordeal has been a harrowing process.
Like a lot of survivors do, they box that experience away, and then having to lift the lid off that box and bear their horrific childhood experiences, has been very difficult for them.
Logins was arrested and charged under Operation Daybreak, an investigation by Nottinghamshire police into alleged historic abuse linked to Beechwood. Detectives are hoping today's verdicts will encourage other abuse survivors to come forward.
I hope it gives them some confidence in that we will support them, we will encourage them. I accept that not everybody wishes to come and tell their story. It's a difficult process, and I acknowledge that, but we will do all we can to try and ease that.
Beechwood Children's Home doesn't exist anymore, flattened to make way for luxury homes. But for the children who suffered here, the past can't be so easily erased.
Well, Phil joined us in our newsroom now. Phil, how difficult was this to bring this case to court?
Oh, extremely difficult. These cases date back 30 years, so there's been no forensic evidence, no DNA, no CCTV to help detectives. Instead, they've had to wade through thousands of old documents and case files trying to piece together dates and times and tie in with victims' accounts. I think it's fair to say as well that as satisfaction, there'll also be some relief tonight at Nottinghamshire Police Headquarters, as they were under a lot of pressure from some quarters to get a conviction. But of course the biggest relief must be for Logan's victims, who've had to relive painful childhood memories. 2 of them have spoken to me about the trauma they went through. Their identities are protected, but there's no hiding the pain felt by Andries Logan's victims. Katie, not her real name, was just 13 when she was sent to Beechwood Children's Home. Already vulnerable after being abused by her stepfather, she initially turned to Logan's for comfort.
I'd always play fight with him, and he'd throw sweetie wrappers at me and blow in my ear on certain occasions.
But Logan soon betrayed Katie's trust, indecently assaulting her in her room and on day trips away from the home. On one occasion, Katie had become upset at school after writing a poem called Loneliness and was sent back home to Beechwood. Logan's was waiting.
I remember going straight up to my room, lying on my bed and, having a really good cry. And at this point, Mr. Logins actually came into my bedroom. He was quite competent towards me, telling me everything was going to be all right and asking me basically, why the poem had upset me. I can remember having a brief talk to him about it, and one thing led to another, in which I was sexually assaulted.
Afterwards, Logan's told Katie to keep quiet.
He just basically said that, we was to keep this to ourselves and nobody needed to know about it, basically, and everything was going to be all right, and I was his, pet girl, and if I ever needed anything was to go to him.
James, also not his real name, arrived at Beechwood shortly after Katie. He remembers seeing children being kicked and beaten by certain members of staff, and says the boys were often forced to box each other.
You had to like pick an opponent and then put the gloves on and fight each other.
And whose decision was that you would have to box each other?
Staff.
James also remembers times when he was singled out by Logins and subjected to cruel and humiliating treatment.
Punch you in the ribs. And after you've done that, made me strip off, stand in a corner with my hands on my head.
And what was he saying to you?
Looking, grinning,
What were you doing?
crying.
For 30 years, James kept his ordeal hidden before finally speaking to the police. To face the prospect of picking out his abuser in an identity parade.
And when his face came up, and when he had to turn to the left, I knew that was him.
You had no doubt.
No doubt. I'll never forget that face.
For Katie and James, the abuse has long since stopped, but both say their memories of what happened to them at Beechwood back then will forever haunt them.
Every day, think about it. I cry most days. I drink a lot just to block it all out, but it's still there in the morning.
Sexual abuse, you never, ever, ever. You go to bed dreaming about, thinking about it. You wake up thinking about it. You learn to get on with it. You learn to push it so deep down inside, but it never goes away.
Well, Andrew Logins was employed by Nottinghamshire County Council when he worked at Beechwood Children's Home. As well as the sexual abuse carried out by him, the jury also held evidence of a regime at the home that was described as brutal, involving children being beaten, kicked and punched by certain staff. Well, after today's verdict, the Council's Corporate Director for Children and Families, Colin Pettigrew, released a statement welcoming the verdicts and praising the bravery of the victims, adding, "Children in our care should have been safe and protected, and the Logans trial heard that in the 1980s they were not. For that we sincerely apologise." Well, he also went on to say that abuse of children in any era is totally unacceptable, and the residential children's homes of the 1980s bear no resemblance to those of today, adding that we would encourage anyone who has suffered abuse of any kind to come forward and report it to ourselves or to Nottinghamshire Police. Well, up until last spring, Andrew Logan spent 10 years working as an adoption social worker for the organisation Faith in Families. And they're a charity and independent adoption agency based in Nottingham, with adoption specialists, social workers and support staff who work across the East Midlands and beyond to help children find new homes. They've told ITV News Central that before employing Logans, they carried out full background and police checks on him that came back clear. They also told us his role involved working with adoptive parents and children of various ages. They also went on to say in a statement, "We first learned Andrew Logans was subject to an investigation in connection with allegations of abuse at Beechwood Children's Home in August 2013, and he was immediately suspended. An internal investigation was launched and no safeguarding issues were found. Andrew Logans remained suspended until formally charged in April 2015 when his employment with the agency was terminated." Well, Andrew Logans will now be sentenced for his crimes on Wednesday afternoon. The judge has told him he will face a substantial sentence, which will be measured in many years.
Phil, thank you for that report.
Caring for as a Nottingham Children's Home. Andrew Logans has also been convicted of a string of crimes against boys at the Beechwood Home.
Drink every day. Cry most days. It was wrong. Evil.
We'll be looking in detail at the case. Hello, good evening, welcome to the programme with Quentin Rayner and me, Anne Davis. First tonight, a former social worker has been found guilty of raping girls and abusing boys at the residential home where he worked. Andrew Logans is the first care worker to be convicted after a major police inquiry into historical abuse in Nottingham.
It's more than 30 years since Logans carried out the attacks on 4 children in his care at the Beechwood Children's Home. Tonight, 2 of those victims tell this programme how they're still suffering breakdowns and panic attacks. Our social affairs correspondent, Jeremy Ball, reports.
The rapist who preyed on children he was supposed to be caring for, Andres Logins abused his position of trust in the most horrific way. It took decades for victims like Katie to summon the courage to report him. We've changed her name to protect her identity.
He sexually assaulted me in my bedroom. He knew how to get away with it, obviously. He knew when the time was right, you know, when the most quiet times was, and you live with it day in, day out. I feel like I'm doing a life sentence here. Constant panic attacks, anxiety attacks, the fear of not being in control. He wasn't a carer, you know, he was just nothing more than an abuser.
At the time, Logins was in his 20s, a young residential social worker looking after children who'd only just been taken into care.
At the observation centre.
It was 1981 when he began working at the home in Mapley, the year this documentary was broadcast. As away from the cameras, another of Logan's victims was beaten, then forced to strip and sexually humiliated.
All I remember was crying, thinking to myself, why is he doing it to me? Every day is now a challenge to get up. I'm actually off work at the moment, stressed. Drink every day, cry most days. And he's wrong. Evil.
In court, Logins tried to pin the blame on several of his former colleagues at Beechwood, but today a jury found him guilty of 17 historical offences. And as those verdicts were handed down, his family hugged and wept. But why did it take so long for Beechwood's gruesome secrets to emerge? It was fear. The regime had made children too scared to report abusive carers.
Punishments were quite brutal. People being kicked and punched and split lips and bloodied noses, which made it very difficult for the children to be able to go to staff to disclose what was happening to them. And the fact that they were hoping to have this safe place, but then being further abused, it's horrific.
And the trial heard that Logins photographed a colleague twisting a boy's heel and burning him with a cigarette. On the back he'd written, "Childcare at its best."
He'd pounce on you. You'd see people getting kicked, pushed about, grabbed up by the throat against the wall.
We used to make a shift box and ring up, and we had to go to fight each other. I really got any good memories about Beechwood, because it was kind of brutal.
And how badly do you feel that you were let down?
I feel very badly let down by the system. I knew that it was started to happen all over again. If you had a problem, they just didn't seem to want to know about it.
The buildings where that abuse took place have now been demolished, but the police investigations are far from over. And after more than 3 decades, Andres Logins has finally been brought to justice.
Well, Jeremy Ball is with us in the studio now. Jeremy, goes without saying this is a shocking case, but what happens next?
Well, Logins is going to be back in court to be sentenced on Wednesday afternoon, but the judge has already said he's going to jail for many years. And of course, this isn't the end of the story, because Beechwood's at the centre of a major police inquiry, that inquiry called Operation Daybreak, that's looking at historical abuse. Now, there have been several other arrests as part of that. Almost 200 potential victims have come forward to the police. In addition to that, the home's also being investigated by Justice Goddard's new national inquiry into child sexual abuse.
And has there been any reaction to this afternoon?
Yeah, I mean, I was in court this afternoon. Huge emotion as these 17 guilty verdicts were delivered. Not just from the family, but also from victims of abuse who were sitting behind them in the public gallery, who hugged each other with relief, really. Afterwards, we got a statement from Nottinghamshire County Council, who used to run Beechwood, and that says they've welcomed the guilty verdicts, they're encouraging any other victims to come forward, and they say they sincerely apologise for what happened.
Okay, Jeremy, thank you.
Today in Nottingham, we've got a guilty, and it's been long coming, 2 years. We've been waiting for this day. All I want to say is thank you to the survivors that stood up today in that courtroom. It was never easy, but you believed in yourself and you fought for your justice and you got it. I hope there's many more like you and many more comes out. This might bring more people forward and make people not scared to come forward to have their day in court. Don't let them get away with it. Keep coming forward, keep fighting for justice. And one by one, we'll get rid of all this scum and we're going to make change for the future for all the kids in this country. Never give up. That's my advice to all survivors. When the times are hard and you're on them odd days with your PTSD, keep going, keep fighting, and we will get there together. And we'll all come together behind you and fight for that justice. What a day.